Welcome back to Newsday. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Now, the two major umbrella unions of Nigerian workers, that's the Nigeria Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress, on Thursday pushed for separate figures as proposals for a new national minimum wage. The failure of the two labour bodies to harmonise their positions assumed a national outlook, with their state chapters and those of the Federal Capital Territory seemingly towing similar lines. Well, Arise News analyst Dayo Sobowale is right here with us to look at the various figures proposed by Labour during the zonal hearings of the National Minimum Wage Review Committee and how realistic they are given the state of the Nigerian economy. Good afternoon, Mr. Sobowale. It's always great to have you on the program.
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure being here as usual.
Right, I guess let's start with the main thing, which is, as I said in the intro, several numbers being thrown at the situation. What is your initial take on this?
They are unrealistic figures. And I think the unions are being sarcastic with government. They're being sarcastic with the government. And the reason is very simple. If you are admitting the figures in the foreign exchange market vis-a-vis the Naira, and you know the way prices are going all over the place, it means you have allowed the free market economy, market forces to determine prices. So let us use it to determine wages. It's logical, get me? And see, it may seem I'm being selfish now. My own is that government should intervene in this crisis. Now, this sarcastic proposal, you get me, on minimum wage from TUC and all of them talking of almost about those figures. I don't even want to mention.
700,000, 400,000.
I won't say they are ridiculous, but they are not realistic. And these labor unions are mocking government. I'm telling you, at the end of the day, they know it is not payable, it's not workable. How can you go from 30, except perhaps in a Plateau State, who are talking of 60,000, 80,000. This ballooning of figures based on the rate of the Naira to the dollar to kill the economy. It's as simple as that. It's not pragmatic, it's not realistic, and it's paying back government in its own coin. If you say you do not say anything wrong in fixing the rate, then let us play ball along. It is not a diligent approach or realistic approach to the wage structure. The way out, to me, the novelty in what they are doing is that for once, they know that you cannot be paying a worker working in an industry in Maiduguri the same thing as you will pay somebody who is working here in Lagos. Geopolitical zones have various industrial, occupational, and agricultural resources and needs. And there is always occupational migration. People seek greener pastures where they think their skill or trade are in high demand because you want to have the highest something. So somebody should tell the unions, and they know what they are doing. They said they are open to researches. They usually worked out how they got at the wages based on the financial figures which has been on deadline all these days about the collapsing of the foreign exchange market. Yes, they are paying back government in its own coins. If you cannot intervene to fix the rates to a realistic pattern, then we follow suit. It's not realistic. It's a mockery of financial economics. Sam?
Okay.
Yes.
Well, Mr. Sobowale, to more on your point about how you can pay someone in, I'm not sure which state you mentioned, the same that you pay in Lagos, but it's also been highlighted by some analysts saying the regional disparities must be factored in, that you can't have a one-size-fits-all for this minimum wage based on the variation in cost of living in various states. So how should that be addressed when arriving at a figure?
Yes, that's part of the research. What the labor unions have said is that they have done their research. It's not that they just arrived at those figures in a vacuum. They did their research, and based on the available figures in the foreign exchange market, in the Nigerian market, you know, you have the Bureau of Statistics. They are working on it day and night. See, but if you have to fix a minimum wage, you must take into consideration purchasing power in various areas and capabilities. And again, the industries in various areas. And the sort of occupation in various areas. Okay, like in agriculture, or yes, I mean, in animal husbandry. You know, invariably they move cattle. They migrate down south. You cannot do federal character of balancing in such a way that you pay people in the urban areas where you have the industries, the same thing as people in the rural areas who are migrating downwards. But then they too have their own wage structure. Their market prices are different from those in the urban areas and in the economically vibrant coastal cities. So, like I said, I don't believe the labor unions are serious. So until they are serious, or if I want to play ball with them, let us all sit down and work out how minimum wage will be if the naira is 1-on-1 with the dollar. Do you get me? If the naira is 1-on-1 with the dollar, then work out how the minimum wage will be. But then there must be regional economic disparities. Now you reward people for whatever skills or work they do. And we must take that into consideration. But the way I see it now, this is melodrama, drama entertaining us with figures. That's no meaning. Yes.
Mr. Sobowale, and as you've said, it's drama. Where do we go from here if the labor unions are not coming in good faith and the government is, you know, sort of meeting their energy? They're all matching each other's energy. We've already heard the president express his displeasure with how the labor unions have conducted themselves in what he believes is still so early into his tenure. You know, of course, he very politely alluded to the fact that they've become too politicized. So where do we go from here? Because at the end of the day, the average worker is still earning 30,000 per month. And this is looking like it's going to be an ASU type of long drawn out battle. Meanwhile, the grass is suffering. So where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? It's very simple. They have made their own proposal. Let government react to that. Obviously, government will say it should not be able to pay it. When they get, I have made a suggestion now. It may sound upsetting, but let them look at it. Sit down, let the naira be equal to the dollar, then calculate backwards from these fantastic figures you have gone now. You calibrate it, you will get a result. That is starting out. And then what they are telling government is that if we must talk, let us talk realistically. I'm sure government will be very vexed with what the figures they have put forward. But they can always tell government, but what of the cost of governance? What of cost of governance? What of the caste you're in the entourage? What of all the state legislature, your special assistant? If you can pay all those people, why can't you pay all this? Somewhere along the line, they will negotiate. And let us hope they do it peacefully. Yes, because see, this economic crisis is migrating into the political arena. It can lead to political instability if care is not taken. So government, they've thrown a big challenge to government, literally, with this. I've never had it done anywhere. That you propose this sort of, when you know the reality on the ground. And of course, like you rightly pointed out, when the elephants fight, it is the grass that suffers. But I think the labor movement should get more serious and more patriotic than it is. Now, government too should be more realistic and cut the cost of governance and make labor see reason in talking to each other in a reasonable, pragmatic way that will yield result and put food on the table for the Nigerian masses. Let's leave it at that for now.
Okay. Well said, Mr. Sobowale. Now, bearing in mind the potential impact of whatever figure is arrived at, on the private sector, that we would definitely influence operational costs, competitiveness, and the likes. Are you content with how involved they are at arriving at this decision, whatever it will be at the end of the day?
How is who involved?
How involved the private sector is when it comes to arriving at a figure, because it will also affect them.
You see, the private sector knows that it cannot afford. If they say that's the minimum wage, all the factories will run out of Nigeria, literally. Sure. I said this thing is a chimera. It is sarcastic. It is not realistic. Look at it. Okay, how much are we earning now? You get to, even you elites like this. We
elites. I'll just say amen.
It's not realistic. They are making a mockery of governance and industrial relations. Hopefully, after hitting each other below the belt as they have done now, they will sit down and do integrative collective bargaining, where you have win-win, not this one where it is lose-lose. Nobody wants to come to the table with the other with these figures. Government is mad at them. They want to teach government a lesson. But somehow, in the interest of the masses, which voted government into power, and which labor leads, they should find a way to come to the negotiating table and will use whatever form of negotiations to talk realistically and move the minimum wage up and drive the cost of governance down.
That's right. Is it time for us, and I know there's a time we had this conversation and Cynthia alluded to this, I want to bring it back into the conversation. Is it time for us to review how we review the minimum wage? Because of course this is expected to happen when there is such a big gap, such a big amount of time that lapses between negotiations. But you look at a country like France, for example, that review their minimum wage on an annual basis. So these conversations become less tense, because it keeps up with annual inflation rates on a regular basis. So is this also the time for us to throw in that conversation and say the way we're managing our minimum wage is wrong, is a recipe for disaster?
Look, you have mentioned France. That's a dangerous example. I'll tell you why. You remember the French Revolution? They killed all the rich people. You get me? France is where people pay tax, companies pay tax, and that tax is more equitably distributed in society. You get me? Than in anywhere else. And anyway, democracy is meant to redistribute income so that the gap between the rich and poor is minimal. What does this thing that Labour bring, these ridiculous figures they have brought? On their own, it can bridge the gap between the rich and poor. Do you get me? If the elites, the politicians are static, but they will never allow that massive bridge in the gap. Labour too knows they will never allow it, because they want to maintain the status quo. So, what is going on, to me, it's no cause for alarm as long as it is done peacefully. Do you get me? Because it is a quest at redistributing income between the rich and the poor. That should be the duty of democracy, but it is not doing it. And if you bring in the market forces, which Labour has brought into play now, you get me, to teach the government a lesson, you know that the things are not working out. But to me, I'm not alarmed. The ball is, the Labour has thrown the hat into the ring, challenging government. Let government react. Let government react. It's negotiation. And time permitting, the enabling environment for the negotiation being peaceful, we can only watch. It is the duty of government to rule and put food on the table for people. It is the right of Labour to point out the wide gap in income between the rich and poor and redistribute it. In fact, you have said something nice now. Labour is aiming at redistribution of income by jacking up the income from the high. So let the government react to that.
Well, we'll wait for the government to react, but you've reacted very well, and hopefully the peace will continue to reign in this negotiation. But for now, we'd like to thank you for your insight as always. Arise analyst, Mr. Dayo, thank you for joining us here on Newsday.
Thank you.